Hey everyone, it's Joric. Welcome back. Hope you're doing great wherever you are in the world. If you are going to be traveling to Portugal this summer, I want to make sure that you are aware that going in and out of the airports on the mainland, Faro, Lisbon, and Porto, are going to be a pain in your, you know what, pain in your backside. And I'm going to explain why here shortly. And this has nothing to do with strikes, which often happen in the summertime, but they're installing some new biometric systems that are they're eventually going to lead to some efficiency, I'll say. But for the time being, it's creating massive backups when you're getting into the airport. So there's a couple of things I want you to be aware of when you're flying into Portugal. First thing, if you're flying from a non-EU country, you're going to have to go through passport control. So a pro tip is if you happen to be going to Portugal and you're flying in, if you fly in maybe through Paris or Amsterdam or Madrid, Barcelona, and then as part of your trip, get into Lisbon, you won't have to go through passport control because you'll already be in the EU. So that's something that I would consider because going in the summertime, it's high tourist season, even on, I'll say, a good day. If you go through the regular passport control, not the electronic, but it can take a couple hours, and that's if they're not striking. If the representatives, the AIMA representatives are striking, then that can be several hours to get through. The electronic kiosks, sometimes they're working, sometimes they're not. It's a crapshoot because they should be working every day. They're not always working every day, so then everyone has to wait in the long lines anyway. But as they're creating these biometrics, and I believe the whole purpose is to be able to help identify people more quickly and to get people processed. So the end goal is helpful. And there are many people along the way that just don't want this and the fingerprints and whatnot in databases. And I will speak from those of you that might be in the United States. There's something called Global Entry, that program, or there's a TSA pre-check and a clear. We have a few programs here where you can get expedited through security, regular security at an airport, or get kind of expedited service when you're flying back into the U.S. from outside. And it's as simple as just going up to a kiosk and showing your face. In the past, it had to be maybe fingerprints that would identify you. Then there's like really no questions and welcome back, that type of thing. Well, as more places around the world are installing this, Portugal in particular, the airports, because of their popularity, Portugal's popularity, there's more flights than ever to and from. And the kind of entrance halls or immigration halls, as they're called, are getting just busier and busier with people. And they're not hiring any more people to handle that in Portugal, so it's just you have to wait longer. So as they're installing these new systems, that again, hopefully by next fall, they'll be up and running and functional. There's a lot of people that don't want to use the systems because again, they don't want facial recognition or fingerprints available to third parties and governments. But as they're putting them in, it just becomes a pain in the butt to get into the country. We've flown in and out of Portugal dozens of times in 5 years that we were living there, plus long before we ever moved there. And I will say, the summertime, it's a pain to get in. Every once in a while, if you happen to be, let's say, a 6 a.m. flight, and you're one of the first international flights, non-EU, that has to go through immigration hall, often you might be able to get there more quickly, even though there might only be two agents there stamping passports. There may or may not be e-kiosks open for the electronic passport. Oftentimes, that's when we found it to be the easiest. Some of our friends want us to go back this summer in July and August, and we just said we're not going back just because of dealing with frankly, we don't want to be for 4 or 5 hours in the immigration hall just waiting and hoping we're there on a non-strike day. And now hearing news of some, especially Faro and Lisbon, haven't heard too much yet from Porto about putting in this new verification system to be able to identify people. Again, I just don't want to deal with the hassle. So again, pro tip number one, if you are going to Lisbon, if you have a direct flight, just know you're going to be waiting. But if you have a connecting flight through the EU, most likely maybe through Amsterdam or Orly or De Gaulle in Paris or Barcelona or Madrid, that might be the best way to get into the country, because then you don't have to deal with immigration hall at all. You only have to deal with it if you're leaving Portugal for an international flight, then you got to deal with it on the way out. That's a big deal. And then the question I have for you is, for those of you that fly in and out and travel, are you concerned with this data and the information that's in your passport, or facial recognition and fingerprints and whatnot? Are you concerned about governments having that information and if they're selling it to third parties, or are you concerned about that at all? I'm not very familiar with this, but in Europe they have a privacy called GDPR, and I think it's data protection. But I also believe that's part of that extends to the facial recognition and hand fingerprint software as well. In the US, we don't really have that same type of system in place. But I'm very curious to hear what you have to say, or if it's going to impact your travel at all, because going to Portugal, fantastic. And I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me now that we're back in the States. Oh, we didn't get to see you when we were there, but we're going. Can you give us recommendations? Where to go, where not to go, what to see? So it's more popular than ever, which means there's more flights, more people trying to get there. Just means that when you're getting in and out of the airports and it's an international flight in or international flight out, you just have to take your time. Also, this is very important. If you happen to have a passport in the United States, it's this symbol here. I'm going to try to put this up here for you. It's the electronic symbol. If you have the opportunity to do it and use the electronic passport line to get into Portugal and then use it to get out of Portugal, that's the best way. I will say there's sometimes a hiccup, and this is something that's a little caveat that I'm saving for the end here. Let's say you flew into Amsterdam, into the EU, so that's where your passport was stamped and looked at. But you're going to fly out through Lisbon. Or you flew into Madrid, but you're going to fly out of Faro. There may be a hang-up at the electronic passport, the kiosk. We've found this a few times because if we flew back into Europe, but not directly into Lisbon, trying to fly out of Lisbon, it didn't recognize my passport. So then I had to go through the regular line and wait like everyone else for the flight. So that's a gotcha. So I will say more times than not, if you fly into Portugal internationally and you originally get your passport scanned either through the e-kiosk lane, when you leave Portugal for that international flight, you should, without issue, be able to go back through that electronic kiosk. But if you didn't enter the EU, through Portugal, you might have an issue with that. Often they have gate representatives or people walking around. You can always ask them and give them the scenario and see if your passport works or not, so that you're not waiting in the electronic kiosk line to find out that it doesn't work, and then you have to wait in a longer regular line. But I will say this, the last thing I'm going to leave you with, if you stick with me this long, if you're flying into Portugal from an international country, meaning you have to go through immigration hall, go to the bathroom on the airplane before you leave the plane. Just before they land, usually you got the last half hour, 45 minutes, go to the bathroom, make sure you go, because it'll take a little time to get off the plane, get the bus into the terminal or at the gate, and then that immigration hall wait could be several hours. And it's not like they're going to save you your spot in line if you have to go to the bathroom and come back. So just something to keep in mind. Go to the bathroom on the plane before you disembark. That way it'll save you the hassle and frustration in case you might have to wait several hours. It's a way of life. This has been this way before we moved to Portugal. When we were there in 2019 to 2024, we flew in the summer of 2017, summer of 2018. Had to wait 3 hours one time, 4 hours the next. And with strikes that might happen, along with this, the new systems that they're putting in place, just going to cause more frustration for you. So just wanted to give you some tips. Might be able to get around this, or you might be stuck with it. Just know if you're going to Portugal, this is something you're going to have to live with. As always, thank you so much for watching and enjoy your travels.